AYG member meeting. So for all the members are soon to be members. We are flexible events coming up on the Austin. Yes, sir. Yep. May 27th is our next happy hour, and that will be at El Rey here in Boston. Sorry, it's 6:30 p.m. So happy for y'all to come out and enjoy. And then we have our Pride events launching this week, including an BYD group going to the Pride Parade. So be on the lookout for our mobile eyes on that. And then coming up, we will be announcing a substantial revision to our organizational bylaws. Austin Locke has been leading on it. We'll be having that report out soon. So that's all it. Lily Franklin. Austin's going to be talking about Lily Franklin. So I'll hand it over to our Vice President, Austin.
Everybody, my name is Austin. If you did not get a flyer from Caitlin, please see her. But basically, she's handing out flyers for a fundraiser we are having for Lily Franklin. For those of you who don't know, Lily Franklin is running for the House of Delegates down in Blacksburg. Last cycle, she lost by 183 votes in a politically less favorable environment than we have right now. So we are helping her raise the funds so that she can not only reach as many voters as possible, but talk to as many voters as possible. That means that sending canvassers, we will be going down for a weekend, be canvassing in our area. But to ensure that we raise the funds, we facilitated for this event. But the beauty is you're not just throwing your money in a hole. We have a wonderful host at the Arlington Treehouse who is providing a fully catered event, and that actually includes an open bar as well for 21-year-olds and over only. So please get your tickets to that event. Caitlin is handing out the flyers that has a QR code on the back. So on June 26th, Thursday, at the Arlington Treehouse, we are going to be raising as much money as possible for Lily Franklin so she can flip a Southwestern Virginia seat. Thank you.
Alrighty, so we're about to begin our tour. Just a reminder, we are live streaming, so we do know people who weren't able to attend but still want to hear from our candidates. They can go to our Facebook page and watch the live stream, and we'll also be recording the form after. Where we begin, we're going to go over the rules of the form. Each candidate will have a 2-minute for opening and closing statements and 2 minutes more responding to each question. There's no designated time for rebuttals. However, candidates may choose to use their next designated time block of 2 minutes for any rebuttals. Our first moderator is our political director, Caitlin. Then our delegate one. So our House of Delegate one candidates, if you can please come up and get ready. And then also, if you have any questions, I'm usually mentioning this before, but we do have index cards. They'll be floating around, so just raise your hand when someone will be with an index card for question for a candidate. Very nice. We'll see you at the game.
The only one I haven't met is the far right guy. For some reason, you're thinking that.
Is that the debate?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to pose a question. Please raise your hand.
Ask me to sit for the meeting.
Thanks all for joining us. My name is Gabriel, football director of the Democrats. Tonight, moderate. Okay. Before we begin, go over supporting guidelines for our audience members. Brian, so I'm going to discuss the rules, but please hold all audience questions and applause until the end. We want to make sure that we can get through as many questions as possible. On timekeeping, visual countdown clock will be visible to all candidates. And our time keeper, James, will be here, visual cues, to make sure that I can question. The time limit will be waiting for, so candidates please, choice. When we begin, each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening and 2 minutes for closing. The order of these statements will follow the official ballot order as published by the Arlington County Electoral Sample Ballot. The order is as follows: Mr. Archer Shrikov will start, Mr. Sean Edson will second, and Delegate Patrick will go third. Candidate responses will rotate, but each question will follow the same order. Application clearly listed each with each question. When final question, it is running for House delegates. Final question, 6 minutes before the voting states in. As for me, the moderator may rephrase questions slightly for clarity and flow, and may ask limited follow-up questions with each candidate receiving up to 30 seconds to respond. Additionally, the moderator may adjust the question order to maintain balance in the overall flow form. Thank you in advance for your attention and cooperation. We sincerely appreciate your commitment to civic engagement and getting to know each of these candidates from the House District 1. To our candidates, thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. We appreciate your engaged our Democrats, hearing our voices, process. Following ballot order, we will begin our opening statements. Mr. Shrikov, but before we do that, take a moment of personal privilege to acknowledge somebody who is a larger than life figure in politics. Unfortunately, Congressman Gary Collin passed away this morning during the battle with cancer. On behalf of the Arlington Democrats, myself, we're extending our condolences and best wishes to Congressman, his family, as well as loved ones. Please join me for a brief moment of silence. Opening statements. Mr. Shrikov, your 2 minutes, maybe.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabe. Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank the Arlington Young Democrats for hosting this forum. My name is Arjun Shrikant, and I'm running for the Virginia House of Delegates in District 1. I'm a software engineer, musician, and a first-time homeowner. I live right across the street. I'm running for office because Virginia is at a crossroads. The old ways of doing things simply aren't working. The cost of living is getting out of control, especially in our district. Arlington has become unaffordable for seniors, families, working class people, and young people to live in the neighborhoods that they call home. And across the river in Washington, D.C., Donald Trump is attacking federal workers and destroying the foundations of our country. Instead of protecting vulnerable Virginians, the Republicans in Richmond are helping in every step of the way. We need a crisis, and we need a new generation of leadership to fight back. I can make it perfectly clear where I stand when it comes to both housing and clean energy. We need to build. We need to build more housing. Rent and home prices are out of reach for a vast majority of working Virginians. We need to streamline the convoluted barriers to construction that have kept housing unaffordable across the Commonwealth. We also need to build a renewable energy grid and finally break the chokehold that Dominion has over our power generation. Clean energy is the key to fighting climate change, but 100 years of Dominion's monopoly and decades upon decades of red tape have brought construction of wind and solar to a standstill. It's time to let Virginians get back to the grid. I'm also running to make sure that our Commonwealth and local governments are protecting vulnerable Virginians from Donald Trump and his administration. As delegate, I will proactively propose legislation in our General Assembly to keep our communities resilient. This means fighting to protect reproductive care for all Virginians and provide resources for our immigrant communities so they know their rights and have access to legal representation. Thank you once again, and I look forward to this policy discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Epstein, 2 minutes.
Well, I appreciate that enthusiasm. And thank you all for being here tonight. This campaign is really embodied my love for my community. I'm just so proud of my campaign, staff, volunteers. Even though we got into the race a little bit late, but really shown up. We're also real proud that we finally have a choice between who will represent us in Richmond. I lived in Arlington for more than 20 years, much of it in District 1. I have 3 kids, all in APS. A wonderful wife, Teresa, is a former oncology and ER nurse, now a partner at a law firm downtown. And I'd like to say a better partner at home. One thing I've learned in 30 years of working and leading and investing in businesses in and around the technology sector is that if everything is a priority, then nothing's a priority. And so when we went around our community, we asked them, what should we do for you in Richmond? And they told us clearly, focus on the economy and on education. From an economy perspective, support and redeploy federal workers here in the community, and partner with companies like LinkedIn, who are far better than we are at preparation, training, and matchmaking for sustainable new careers. Invest in small and medium-sized businesses so they can weather the turbulent times and have access to capital, and bring the right new businesses with high-paying jobs to Arlington. From an education perspective, invest in pre-K and after-school programs like Aspire, double down on mental health and physical health resources available at school, and cut the administrative and red tape that's facing educators and keeping them from teaching our students. Please remember, every candidate was once a first-time legislator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Delegate.
Good evening, Arlington Young Democrats and Arlington CBD. It was a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you to Arjun and Sean for being here in store to run. And thank you to all the Arlingtonians here listening tonight. I'm Patrick Pope. I'm running for re-election in my 9th term in office as your delegate. My wife and I and Kristen moved to Arlington 25 years ago. We settled in the Buckingham community and fell in love with Arlington. And like so many of you, we quickly were inspired to do our part to get active in our community. And so what I did was no one could do it, bring the Buckingham community together. We started the Buckingham Community Civic Association. No one thought it was possible, but we brought everyone together to do that. And I serve as chair of the Arlington Community Services Board, which oversees services and treatment for people with mental illness, substance abuse, and intellectual disabilities. When I first became your delegate, I went to Richmond with the goal to bring Arlington values to the rest of Virginia. I'm proud to stand before you today, 16 years later, in a state that went from one of the worst in the nation to gun violence prevention to one of the best. And a state that expanded Obamacare to 700,000 Virginians now have access to health care. And the last state in the South to protect reproductive freedoms. Each day I'm inspired by the words of Hubert Humphrey with a quote that said, "The moral test of government is how well we take care of children, dawn of life, those in the twilight of life are older adults, and those in the shadows of life, the sick, the needy, and the disabled." If you look at my voting record, the bills and the budget amendments that I've introduced over the last 16 years, you will see that Hubert Humphrey's moral test of government reflected throughout. To always protect our most vulnerable populations amongst us. That's why I'm asking for your continued support in this primary and for the privilege and the honor to keep fighting together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we will now begin our first question. Mr. Treehorn, the first question would be begin. Public service growth out of a committed to your community. What experiences do you have that would make you an effective legislator and an advocate for the members of the community relying on you?
Thank you for that question. It's a great one. As far as my commitment to my community, I do serve on the board of my condominium building, the West U, just across the street, and we've been making sure for our 300 residents that we are making life streamlined and modernizing our amenities. It's a small thing, but it really adds up for those folks. I've also been incredibly involved with the Arlington Food Assistance Center. I regularly go to our farmers markets and deliver food back to the donation services. But most importantly, I am among you. I'm a federal contractor. I've been one for the past 4.5 years. My girlfriend has been a federal worker for an entire year, 20 years. I understand the uncertainties that people are facing right now because I was fired myself 2 months ago. So when you want someone to represent your community, send someone who understands the stakes and who's been there and who wants to really fight for the priorities of this district in Richmond.
Thank you. Mr. Epstein.
Yeah, so I think it's a fantastic question. If I think about the things that I've done in the community since I've been here, we first lived in South Arlington in Douglas Park, where I was the vice president of Civic Association for many years. We brought about a ton of change within the Douglas Park community, which is rapidly expanding, right? If you look at the housing price in Douglas Park right now, I'm a little upset we sold our home. But we brought about a beautification project at Douglas Park itself to make it more beautiful and to make the park easier for our kids to be able to play on. I'm also on the board of the Hillel at George Mason University, which is the Jewish organization that supports incoming Jewish students to allow them to continue their Jewish life at George Mason and have a safe spot to do so, which obviously in these challenging times has been difficult. We're also part of the Lombardi Foundation on behalf of cancer research, which is near and dear to our heart and which my wife and I have been actively involved in for over 12 years. I'm also a UVA or University of Virginia alumnus, and a local mentor to students who are looking for jobs, applying for jobs, summer internships, etc. And I'm also extremely active in our local Donaldson Run community and Donaldson Run community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Community service is really a passion and it's in my blood. And that's really inspired me to run for public office in the first place. I mentioned my work with the BKGNnHSHCngYAm Civic Association and bringing that together. And millions of dollars have flown to our community, but my community, because we established results as a civic association. Things like improving street lights, sidewalks and roads, speed humps, some people like this, building boards, but they're making our community safer. And those are things that you do when you accomplish. Community Services Board, sharing CSB, giving more services to people with disabilities. I was on the Commission on Aging as well for a number of years. We're very active with the Democratic Party. I think I'm like a 3-time winner, Steve, officially. I can better say but I'm very active in Arlington politics. I'm on the board of the Arlington Historical Society. I'm on the board of the Arlington Free Clinic, and getting my time there. Soccer coach. You've been a coach to your kids. I'm soccer coach. My daughter Patty. I was in Special Olympics with athletes coaching them basketball and soccer, really reviving that program. I think part of the community service is not just participating, but getting stuff done, having actions, giving results. I'm also a member of service clubs as well. I belong to the Arlington Kiwanis, South Arlington Kiwanis, the Optimist Club as well. I'm very active in my community. Not to mention my public service as a delegate. We can get to that question, but I'm sure that we need the time there. But it's really in my club. We are civil servants. We are a citizen legislature. No, I'm not a career politician. No, my general somebody's a career politician. You don't have separate careers. We can't afford to live on $17,000 or $800 a year. And so we have other jobs. We have things that we're active in the community. And so I so much appreciate the question because Arlington really does like people that are running for office that have some accomplishments that they've done in their community. And I appreciate the question.
Thank you. And it is good showing. Second question, Mr. Epstein, you begin. Affordable housing remains one of the most pressing issues for Virginians, especially in Northern Virginia. The average age of first-time home buyer is 44 years old. What specific policies or legislative actions will you pursue to reduce costs, expand access to housing, and lower the average age of first-time home buyers in Virginia?
Well, I think it all starts with building better. We're just not good at building. We were good in the 50s. We're not good now. We have redundant laws that are in place and permits in place and processes in place that we're solving for 20th century problems, not 21st century solutions. You look across our state, we are lagging behind many others in infrastructure. It's a great example. Let's not build them. Been to Columbia Pike and heard about the tenants that decided to pull out because it took us too long to permit, cost of capital changed. And I deal with supply chains all day. They just decided at that time it no longer was feasible. So we've got to get rid of what we used to do and how we used to do it. If you want to talk about affordable housing, that's a totally separate matter than affordability. Affordable housing is going to need to try to come in at under $400,000 per unit. We're not going to do that without things like modular housing, which we're going to fight in many cases against the unions now. Because most modular housings are made off-site, and a lot of the companies that are doing it are not unions. And that's what's held up a lot of states across this country. And that's just not acceptable. So the idea of just throwing good money at a poor inability to actually build is the starting point for me. I want a cross-state audit of every single capital project over $100 million. I want a real-time tracker that you can go online and see. Then I want to do things to incentivize builders to actually make sure frontline workers have spaces in their places. Nurses, who wouldn't want a teacher on the 4th floor that could tutor you at 7 p.m. in the evening, or a police officer there just in case something happens. These are just some of the many ways in which we can approach it, but we're going to have to build better to do anything.
If you had asked me what's the number one issue facing Arlington right now, probably 6 months ago, I would say this is the issue. Right now, it's the issue happening federal government. But we've got to build, it's not just affordable housing, it's all housing. We need more housing, some. And the question really should be, what can the state do? Because I don't want to get too involved in local issues. I'm not running for local government, I'm running for state. We at the state level push down the authority for zoning responsibility to localities to make these decisions. And what authority they need to get, I would certainly welcome that ask and support it. We did one bill that happened this year where we tried to allow them to streamline the process for churches, other nonprofits that wanted to build affordable housing on top of their site and support that process. Unfortunately, that bill did not get out of the Senate. It was considerably revised in the House. And the governor didn't sign it, but it really was pretty much a good enough bill. And so we have to do more there. But Deshaun makes an excellent point. If this is not just affordability for low-income people, we've got to make sure that we're missing middle, we have to build housing, more housing stocks, but it's also workforce housing as well too. Nurses, police officers, firefighters. Find me a firefighter that lives in Arlington County. Find me a police officer that lives in Arlington County. They can't afford to live here. And so we've got to do more at the state level. We have a Virginia Affordable Housing Trust Fund that has been created. We have $300 million. We probably should have over $1 billion in it. I support every single year budget amendments to expand the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, to do whatever we can, push the authority down to localities to build more housing stock, but also to help supporting and funding helping we can support people that can afford to live here. I have 3 kids. There is no way they can afford to come back and live here. I couldn't afford to buy my house today, and I think a lot of people are that way. They should have.
Yeah, that is an excellent question. Housing is our #1 issue in this campaign. We want to make sure that folks can afford to live in the communities they call home. There are a lot of great policies that we can pass in the General Assembly at the state level to really address this. One is amending our building code so that we can more easily repurpose office space into housing. Religious organizations, allowing them by rights to build housing on their land. I really want to see permitting reform go through at the Commonwealth level. You know, we've seen projects that are spending multiple years in review processes and permitting before they even lay a single brick. And we've seen great reforms in California. We've seen great reforms in Texas. I want to bring some of those so we can limit that time. Accessory dwelling units, allowing homeowners to build those on their property by right is something I would like to see. And amending our liability laws to promote home ownership. You know, rental properties are great for transient folks, but if we want to invest people into their communities, we're going to need to build homes they can buy. And that starts with introducing things like right to repair laws so that developers, before it can get to litigation, can come in and repair any issue, rectify issues so that, you know, they don't feel the liability when they're actually building these homes to buy. Now, one of the issues here when we're talking about affordability is obviously the process. So I do have to ask, you know, if we're so about affordability, then why, Delegate Lowe, did you introduce House Bill 1395 to introduce a so-called historic preservation process that is now holding up development of the Melwood project in South Arlington, a development that was designed for adults living with disabilities? It's now going to be in permitting and historical review for another year. And I think that is unacceptable. And you were warned at the time that that's going to happen. Any neighbor can now encumber any development across the Commonwealth if they claim it's historic.
False. Absolutely false.
It's true.
Look, I talked to the Attorney General's office about this. If you read the bill, A lot of people look at Carl Now's article, Scott McCaffrey wrote an article about it, it's explaining the law. I told you repeatedly what the bill does. It does not do that. When it has two conditions have to apply. The county board has to approve a property to be historic. Condition number one. Condition number two, they have to subsequently get a request to demolish the property. That hasn't happened yet. And if that were to happen, then the bill kicks in. The bill would have a 30-day delay between the approval of the demolition and the issuance of it. The Attorney General will be issuing an advisory opinion about this next month. And this would have never passed the General Assembly ever had it had that, as you explained, it's absolutely false.
Thank you, thank you. Our third question, Delegate Hoagie, will begin. Federal workers in Virginia, particularly here in Arlington, have faced instability and political attacks from the Trump administration and Elon Musk's Doge. Job loss data shows Virginia has been hit harder than any other state as a result of these federal cuts. How would you use your position in the House of Delegates to advocate for and protect federal employees and their families here in Arlington?
They absolutely critical question and the number one issue facing us right now. The House and Senate have set up special committees to take a look at this particular issue. They're going all over the state. I've spoken to the Speaker of the House about this, primarily because Arlington is the epicenter for the cuts to federal employees. We have the University of Virginia is now saying that we're going to have 32,000 job losses, where we probably should be looking at 50 to 75,000 per year increase. We're now going to see a deficit because of what's happening. In a briefing with Arlington County, everyone is in a tough spot where we're losing money. The local government's going to lose money. They're seeing it in their meals tax coming in low. Sales tax are coming in low. When you've lost your job, you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to business. This is going to make our entire economy suffer. Our unemployment rate just here in Arlington has gone up 1.2% in the last year, 60% increase year over year. That's just here at Arlington. We've got to get together and say, what can we do, tangible things that we can do? Because when you go into special session, you write a law, it's got to be tangible. We have got to increase unemployment insurance in Virginia. Virginia ranks 42nd in the nation when it comes to unemployment insurance. And we need to increase it by $100 a week. Right now, people get $378 a week. Who can survive on $378 a week? The family afford. It's just impossible to do that. So we need to increase it by $100. We need to expand it to make sure it lasts the full 6 months. We got to look at what we did during the COVID to have emergency orders where we can support tenants, people making sure that they can get out of their leases or give them support, financial support to maintain their lease. Mortgage help as well. So we're going to have to amend the landlord-tenant law in order to do that. Tax incentives that we can give to federal Virginia businesses who get preferential hiring treatment for federal employees. We already allow this for other preferences up to $9,000. We can do it here. There's a whole lot of tangible things that we need to do that Arlington needs to see at the table.
Mr. Shreepov.
I just want to add quickly, the intention of the bill that you passed, it doesn't matter what the intention was. The effect is it's not going to be built for another year. All right, I was going to just that's a lot. It's not
That is a lot.
Look it up on all now.
Yeah.
So again, bro.
It's not explaining the law.
Thank you for that question. This is an incredibly important issue right now. Right now, what the General Assembly can do is we can partner with our local chambers of commerce because we have a ton of talented and highly educated workers here in Arlington who are going to leave en masse if they don't actually find something, some real gainful employment right now. So making sure we can partner those folks with businesses that need their talents. We also, I'm happy that they created a committee to study the effects, but what we really needed was to treat this like a COVID level event. This is an emergency. Folks are getting fired left and right, and this time no one is coming to save us. The federal government is the one actually perpetrating this on us. So what we needed to do was actually pass some temporary unemployment benefits so that people have money in their pockets, they have mortgages, they have families, they need to be able to feed those. We also need, I agree, some tax incentives to spur investment into Arlington. You know, those investments come in the form of clean energy research, medical research, using the talents of, you know, folks that used to work at NOAA, folks that used to work at the EPA, and actually bringing that research here. A small investment from the Commonwealth of Virginia can lead to compounding benefits. You know, that's where I would like to see a lot of the resources that we have at the Commonwealth come into play here. And frankly, we have to treat this, I'm from Houston originally, and in the 80s, there was an oil crash, and Houston had a reckoning. They realized they needed to diversify their economy. We have been so dependent on a single employer for most of our economy for so long. We're going to have to figure out not only what happens for the next 3 years, but the next 10 to 15. I think that with the talent we have here in Arlington, as long as we can get them to stay, we are well situated for a birth of, hospitality, technology. We could become Silicon Valley of the East here.
Thank you. Mr. Epstein.
Listen, I think this is an all options on the table, all hands on deck situation. Right, if you're a federal worker and you've got a family and you've got a mortgage, this is a sky's falling issue. I don't think we're really good at segmenting problems, right? But this one we should segment, right? Because we have federal workers with more than 20 years of experience. Those federal workers' Rolodex are priceless. They're going to find jobs. We have workers in the federal government that have less than 10 years of experience, who are hungry, who are utilitarian generalists, and who can be redeployed. That's where folks like LinkedIn come. Like, I love job fairs, and they were awesome in '87 and all that I used to go to with bird arms. But in 2025, LinkedIn has all the facilities to upskill people, to matchmake people, and to prepare them for those next careers. I don't know why we're not CEO to governor level. Well, I know why we're not CEO to governor level, because he wants to talk to you. But I know we ought to be at CEO level to governor, having conversations with LinkedIn, Indeed, and others to figure that out. So segmentation is important, because I do believe it is a sky is falling problem, but I do also want to be clear it's not COVID. It may feel like COVID, but it is not COVID. And the numbers show it. The small and medium-sized businesses, which I think you touched on, are also being affected. Folks aren't going out to lunch. Folks aren't buying stuff at a shop on the way home for their wife or husband or partner. These small and medium-sized businesses, again, need more access to capital. And Arjun is right. We need a next generation of technology companies out here, ed tech, health tech, AI, and venture capital to support them. Co-locating venture capital along with these businesses is what creates a Silicon Valley. I've worked in it for 30 years. I've invested in it for 30 years. So we have all of these approaches are great, and we should consider absolutely every one of them. But let's be practical. Let's segment. Let's bring in partners who can do it better than we can.
Thank you, okay, fourth question, we begin with Mr. Schreiber. Virginia is one of the oldest right to work laws in the country. Do you support or oppose its full repeal? And where do you stand on supporting labor in Arlington?
Thank you for that question. Yes, we do have a very stringent right to work law here in our Commonwealth. I do support its full repeal. It is frankly unfair that the union can bargain for different rights and different wages, and that somebody who's not a member of that union can come in and then benefit from those wages. What we need to do is, frankly, a full repeal. We need to support labor here in Virginia, labor here in Arlington. These are the backbone of our trades. They're the backbone of folks that work with their hands. And if we're not paying them their due, if we're not giving them the rights that they so dearly deserve, then we're failing to be the party of the working class.
Thank you. Mr. Epstein.
Yeah, I think it's, in my opinion, a bit naive to think about just completely repealing it. It's not the way things work. I think there are amendments that can be made where our June is going and makes a lot of sense is much like an HOA. You have to pay some minimal fee, right? And I spent a lot of time with David Broder, who's an activist. He happens to also be my cousin. And when we spent that time talking about the right to work legislation, we talked about the fact that there are ways to improve it, not just rip it apart. And I think if we were to increase the requirements for folks coming in so that they contributed a fair share, but may not want to be actively participating in the union, that we could probably make that work as well. And in that period of time, we can parallel process and create a better law that makes more sense for Commonwealth.
I support full repeal of right to work, period, full stop. Arjun, I wrote an article on that. You should read it, but it's the only thing factual that come out because I wrote it, not the one you referenced. But I've been endorsed by every single union that are out there. SAIU just endorsed me today, AFL, CIO, Nova Labor, the electricians, the pipe fitters. List goes on and on of all the support that I have from you because they know I'm a reliable vote for them. This is Right to Work was formed out of Jim Crow South. It was to go after Black employees so that they did not get fair wages. They did not have better working conditions. They didn't have the ability to collectively bargain to get better conditions, to get vacation time, sick time. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And so I support absolute full repeal. It will make us a stronger state. There are states that have repealed their right to work law, and it's still a great state for business. And we can do both. We've proven that, and we can do it. And I support full repeal.
Thank you. The question will begin with you, Mr. Epstein. The Trump administration appears to be on the verge of eliminating or reducing a number of programs and initiatives that affect health-related programs, including Medicaid, Medicare, as well as programs that help make vaccines and other critical drugs readily available and affordable for Virginians. Facing a trigger that could potentially disenroll some hundreds of thousands of Virginians from Medicaid, how will you address this issue and protect access to health care?
I think as a state, we have the obligation to protect all of our citizens, regardless of the programs from a healthcare perspective that they're on. The challenge will be in figuring out what gets taken out. Right? It's always about a trade-off. So whom do we want to support, for how long, and in what way? Because that's going to be a spend, and therefore we're going to have to find a savings. So the question I often have is, where are we taking that money from? If we're taking it from new revenue sources, like the legalization of cannabis as an example, or an increase on sin taxes, perhaps you can offset some of those costs. But at the end of the day, I think from a Virginia perspective, we're obligated to make up that gap until someone less wacky is living in the White House. And hopefully that's in a few years, or maybe sooner. Well,
Thank you. Then we go.
And this is a top concern of mine of what's going to happen to Medicaid, mainly because Virginia gets about $15 billion every year from the federal government in Medicaid. And we're talking about thousands of people being thrown off of healthcare rolls in this case. When you take a Medicaid, a big portion of it, it's about 30% of our entire budget. A big portion of it goes to older adults, people living in nursing home care, people not getting the adequate care that they would need in nursing homes. Here's a statistic that I think is interesting that might blow you away. Do you know about half of all babies born in Virginia are born to Medicaid moms? Do you realize that? Half. And the babies will still be born in Virginia. I can gladly report, but prenatal, postnatal care, that's bad for the Muslim. And of course, it disproportionately hurts people of color. And so we're going to be putting a lot of resources in helping our vulnerable populations, people with mental illness, people who suffer substance abuse, intellectual disabilities. I'm very concerned that those services and those treatments will be going away because we can't afford it. Now, when we go back to the special session, you can be absolutely sure it's going to be our highest priority. We have about $2 billion set aside in a revenue stabilization fund. We got a rainy day fund that's going to be very hard to touch, about $2 billion there, but another $2 billion that gives us a little bit more flexibility. We set aside about $900 million as well too, to help streamline mitigate the damage that could be caused, totally self-inflicted by President Trump and Republicans if this comes down. We have got to mitigate those damages and protect our most vulnerable populations. That would be the highest priority for me. I've spoken to the speaker, and the speaker absolutely agrees that those were actions that we will take to help support our vulnerable populations.
Thank you for your response. Sure.
Yeah, it is a very, very scary time for folks who rely on Medicare and or Medicaid, you know. So the question that I have is, these plans to decimate Medicaid and the enrollment that we have here in Virginia, they were kind of part and parcel of Project 2025, which was released more than 2 years ago. And my real question is, what have we done as a Commonwealth to prepare for it? Where was our Project 2025? You know, they've been threatening to do this for years. Every time a Republican is president, this seems to come up. And I just think the fact that we are scrambling right now to figure out where the funding is going to come from is unacceptable. We have to be willing to understand and be proactive in protecting our communities, because this is going to be the reality for the next 3 years. And frankly, we can't afford to be scrambling every 4 years, every time there's a new president with different policies. We have to be more reliable on how we fund these things. And we have to be willing to say, yes, we may have to raise taxes. We may have to raise more revenue in order to cover these costs. That's where I would see, the opportunity here. We have to be able to do it in a way that is neutral to, our business community, but it's something that we're going to have to eat. It's something that I'm incredibly worried about. We're going to have to use some of the surplus. We're going to have to use, potentially dip into other funds, reallocate from potentially lesser priority things on the budget. So I just, frankly, it's just unconscionable to me that we continue to be stuck in this cycle of, waiting for the federal government to not let us down.
Thank you. Sixth question will begin with you, Delegate Hope. Arlington has faced heightened ICE activity in recent months, with federal figures like Christie known even participating in attacks on our immigrant communities here. In response, the Arlington County Board recently moved to limit police cooperation with ICE. If elected, what steps would you take at the state level to protect immigrant communities here in the house to you?
That's a great question, man. It's nice to be in the minority, but when we were in the minority, we frequently had to fight back bills that would require law enforcement, our sheriff, to report people that were arrested that were undocumented and require them to hold those suspects even after the judge has released them. Now, thankfully, we were able to block that. Thankfully, I believe it went to the governor vetoed it. I'm not even call it at the time. But we've seen that kind of nastiness happen in the Virginia General Assembly. So we're not gonna change the law to force anyone to do any reporting unnecessarily. Well, what I saw with what I read about the county board, their action that they took, they essentially just are complying with the law. And so I don't see anything there that is of any concern to me. I want to support immigrants. I think we should expand healthcare. That's something that we can do to help all immigrants, all children especially, to have access to care. I want to make sure that we continue to fund dreamers in our budget for scholarship, and also make sure that there are accessibility to different landlord tenant rights as well too. We have access to those funding as well. It could be some mean-spirited legislation that gets introduced, but I can guarantee you it won't survive a millisecond. And because it'll be signed in my courts committee, and it won't survive a millisecond in my subcommittee. I'll have a special committee that I'll make up with that.
Hey, Mr. Schumann.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Frankly, again, very worrying time. I feel like I'm repeating myself, to be an immigrant in this country. Just a few short weeks ago, Georgetown Progressive Mother Conservatory was snatched from his home in Roslyn. Thankfully, a judge has ordered his return back to Virginia, so there's a small win to celebrate. But this is the reality for a lot of folks out there right now. And I think in the office of delegate, there are a couple of jobs, there are a couple of ways that we can help. One, utilizing some Commonwealth resources so that folks like immigrant communities, especially here, they're here, they follow the rules, making sure that they know that they have rights. Know your rights forums are going to be an incredibly important part of this, and that they have access to legal representation. So providing resources for justice funds and things of that nature. But also, when you are a delegate, you are an elected official, you have to use that position. Use your position of leadership to be loud. Be loud, disrupt, delay, and make everybody know that injustices are happening in our community and that we're not going to stand for it. So presenting that case to the people of your district is an integral way that you can fight back against this administration. Because if these things occur in darkness, they're just going to keep getting away with it. Use the bullhorn, use the bully pulpit. I think that is one of the biggest ways. Obviously, I think social media and that is a big way that people get their information nowadays. So being savvy with that and being able to project out, the things that are happening, I think it could go a long way in this administration down the peg, if people know what's going on.
Thank you. Sure, Steve.
Yeah, I think we've done a good job of listing some of the ways that we can help solve for this problem. I mean, the challenge, I think, is especially from a police or sheriff's office perspective, is that there's still a tip line and there's still a mobile phone. We don't control them. And so I think we're going to have to not only say that our police officers don't have to work within some of the constructs of ICE, but we're going to really have to educate them on what behavior we're expecting out of them. And then I'm also a person who believes that you should be able to inspect what you expect. So I want to look and see, are police officers going around these restraints and making calls and putting people in jeopardy? And I want to make sure that we can spotlight that. I think the comments that were made earlier, legal representation is huge. My wife does a lot of healthcare related law, but she also does a whole bunch of pro bono work for the immigrant population here across Virginia. Healthcare is obviously huge. I mean, what we don't want is anyone not going to the hospital because they're scared of getting plugged. At the same time, we don't want our ERs to become the place that you go for your daily healthcare, right? Otherwise, we're just providing sick care, not healthcare. So we've got to balance those two, but I think healthcare is a really important area. I also think a lot of it starts in schools, right? Where these immigrant children spend most of their days, and the safest parts of their days, by the way, are in our school systems. So the more that we can work with the teachers and administrators in these schools to uncover issues that are occurring, help people understand what their rights are. A lot of these immigrant kids are the only ones who speak English as their first language inside their houses. And then I think there's things like Aspire Learning after school. If you can get kids to 5th grade reading level by 5th grade, they have exactly the same graduation rates as those 400% over the poverty line. Give them a shot. Just give them a shot. That would be fine.
Thank you. Mr. Shrikant, where do you stand on the 3 constitutional amendments passed by the General Assembly last year, and how do you plan to advocate for their full implementation with your office?
You were referring to the 3 constitutional amendments, removing the language in the Constitution that defines marriages between a man and woman. I'm of course in favor of that. Re-granting felons their right to vote automatically, of course, I would be in favor of that. By the way, reproductive rights, of course, I'll be in favor of that. Now, these are priorities for all Democrats, absolutely. And I would challenge any Democrat out there, the Commonwealth of Virginia, that would not be in support of these 3 fundamental rights. Now, how do we use our platform to really advocate for them? Once again, I think we need to be loud. We need to be educating people on the importance of these rights, that a lot of people are not aware that felons do not automatically get their right to vote. A lot of people are not aware that we have language in our Constitution that defines marriage between one man and one woman. We cannot trust the Supreme Court. It's clearly, from the abolition of Roe v. Wade, we know that we can't trust them. Can we trust them to protect voter film? No, I don't believe we can do that either. So, frankly, you have to be loud. You have to be an educator. I think that's one of the big pieces of being an elected official, is going out to the communities and explaining why it's important to support these laws. I don't think we'll have much trouble here in Arlington, with getting people on board, because frankly, we have a very progressive, and we value those, progressive ideals. But across our Commonwealth, I think we can be loud in promoting our values as well.
Yeah, I'll give you guys back a lot of time. I'm in favor of all 3. So are a majority of the people in the state of Virginia. I will campaign my butt off to make sure that they go to the polls and vote. I have nothing else to say.
Perfect. Can I take this time?
Absolutely.
No. Listen, this is what's at stake in this election. Let me tell you, folks, if we do not take back the majority or keep the majority or expand our majority, all of these constitutional amendments will not get through pass go in the resolution. And it's critically important that we pick up seats. And so that's what I'm doing now. Of course, I voted for all 3 of the constitutional amendments. I helped draft the one on reproductive rights as chair of the courts committee and looking at that. But all of them are critically important. When I knock on doors, I talk to people about the constitutional amendments. I'm doing it now because we have got to make sure that those pass. My only regret is these are great constitutional amendments. My only regret is they can't be on the ballot when we're up. But they're going to be up in the federal year, and it's going to increase turnout. We've seen constitutional amendments just like this that come out. And so we're going to be working very hard to make sure that people know to vote for these constitutional amendments. They are overwhelmingly popular, going door to door, spending money on campaigns, making sure we're investing to make sure that people know what's at stake. The nice thing is it doesn't matter who the governor is with these constitutional amendments, or else we wouldn't have gotten it out. Just so everyone realizes, we have to pass the constitutional amendment. We have an intervening election in November. We have to pass the identical resolution about a period or time we have in place in the 2026 session. And then and only then will it be on the referendum your ballot in the 2026 election. And this is what's at stake, because the United States Supreme Court is pushing these rights down to the states. And so it's critically important that we make a stand on abortion. It's important that we enshrine it in the Constitution so they can be protected for generations. Same thing when it goes to marriage equality. The Supreme Court has already said they want to relook at the Ou12 decision, and so we can't trust that it be there. And then the third one, of course, is to well, my time's up. It's critical. You have more time.
Thank you. All right, we've now reached our final question. Mr. Epstein, you'll begin. What is your proudest accomplishment in life?
Marrying my wife Teresa and creating 3 beautiful babies. You have my time too.
Thank you. Debbie Cook?
I mean, I can't improve on that. I mean, that's, the things that we do in elected office. I've passed over 115 laws. Not all of it fails in comparison to my family, my wife and my kids. That's what all this is about. I mean, I'm running for office, continuing on service to have a better community for them and protect their rights. My son's transgender. Some of you know that, some of you don't. But I worry about him. I worry about what his life is going to be like. And so to demonstrate that I'm going down to Richmond thinking about him, anytime someone puts in a bill that singles him out, pisses me off. And so we think about reproductive rights. Rights of my girls, and my son, now. I'm going to make sure that those rights are protected forever. Marriage equality, we all have someone that's gay or lesbian, queer. Protecting their rights. People should feel safe. Their schools, their communities. We want to create a community. That's why I love Arlington so much. You allow me to do these things. You allow me to say these things. I love coming home. When I was first elected at 32 when the General Assembly passed, 32, 68. We couldn't get anything passed. It was so nice to come home here and talk to people like you that share our values. And I've never given up that. When I think about the things I note on, I think of my kids. I think of your kids, people just like you. And that's why this is such a great job. And I think you think of my Arjun and Sean on this job. I don't like it. It's the best job ever. Because not for the pay, but it's for helping you.
Thank you. Mr. Shrikant.
I've had a lot of time to think about this one. Frankly, it's a tough one for me. I'm 27 years old. My life is in a lot of ways just beginning, and trying to look back and think, of the accomplishments, quote unquote, graduating from college, moving here to Arlington, starting my life, and buying my first home. But really, it's paled in comparison to the honor of doing what I'm doing right now. Going to every single precinct in this district, knocking on doors, and shaking hands with people, understanding what their concerns are. They're worried about their jobs, they're worried about their kids, they're worried about the country. As am I. I'm worried because, frankly, the country that my father came to 40 years ago seems to be slipping away. And in Donald Trump's America, my sister wouldn't have been a US citizen. I probably wouldn't be standing here. I don't come from a political family. I'm the first person in both sides of my family to ever run for office. And the ability to do this, the ability to look people in the eye and say, hey, I'm doing this for you, and I'm doing this for your family because your family reminds me of my family. It's been the honor of a lifetime. It's frankly the largest undertaking I've ever done. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. This is a massive opportunity. What we do here, I think it can have waves, and just happy to be here.
Thank you. Closing statements. Mr. Freeland, you will begin.
That's what it felt like one. But, so I won't repeat this. Also, show for it. 40 years ago, my parents immigrated to this country in search of the promise of the American dream. And what they didn't know at that time is that they would also be finding love. At Georgia Tech, these two young souls who came from wildly different backgrounds, fought against all odds, started our family, and made me. I grew up all across this country, from Tennessee to Texas. And after I graduated from Rice University, I came to Arlington, my chosen home. I was able to start my life here, find my first home, and meet my lovely girlfriend, Courtney, over there and back. I'm running for office because our communities are in crisis, from our federal workers to our schools to our immigrant communities. We're facing unprecedented threats from across the river. And all the while, our party is losing ground with the voters they need to win. Young people, working class people, and people of color. The status quo isn't working. We need a new generation of leaders to fight back. 2025 is our first chance to respond to the recklessness and chaos of this administration, and all eyes will be on Virginia. Over the next 2 years, Democrats can demonstrate credibility by not only standing up and fighting back, but by presenting a credible alternative vision to show America how it's done. And listen, the gravity of this moment is not lost on me. I am afraid. My father did tell me that he doesn't recognize this country anymore. And I want to do everything in my power to preserve the America that welcomed my family and made my life possible. But I can't do this alone. I need your help. Join our canvas launch to send this message to doors across our district. And any contributions you can send will be absolutely critical to getting the message to doors we can't knock. Visit our website at argentforbafirst.org to join us in this fight. We can't afford to sit by and hope for the best. The time is now to meet the moment. Thank you, and I hope to earn your support in the election on June 17th.
Hey, Mr. Epstein.
I have nothing prepared. But this is awesome. Is all I have to say. I debated all through high school and in college at the Jefferson Society. And I have to say, I have tingles watching all of the young people that are in this room being civically engaged. Whether you vote for me or not, whether you want to take off a Hope shirt and put on an Epstein shirt, don't do it. But I honestly, as a parent, I look at all of you that are so engaged, and it makes me so proud. It makes me so happy to think that this next generation is growing into the wonderful people that you are and that you will be, and that you're informed. 90 million people didn't vote in the last election. Right? Voting is an honor. And in my belief, it's a duty and an obligation that we have to this society to make it better. And it's where our voice gets heard. So no matter what you do on June 17th, vote and tell everyone you know to vote as well. When I walk around District 1, like we talked about, 2 issues rise to the top of the minds of everyone I speak to. The economy in Arlington being resilient and growing, and education getting better and better and better. I don't want it to be the best in the state or the best in the country. My kids are competing against people around the world for their college slots, around the world for their job slots. I need our education to be world-class. I need the way we build to be world-class. I need our economy to be world-class. And that's where I'm gonna focus my attention, should you put me in Richmond on June 17th. Thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Delegate Oates.
Thank you, Gabriel, thank you, Dr. Carlos, the Democrats and ACDC, James, thank you. Just so you know. I want to also thank Arjun and Sean for what they're next for. This is tough to be a candidate, and I'm going through it with you. So it's really tough, and so I appreciate you putting yourselves forward. In my time as your delegate, I have taken the title delegate quite literally. The word delegate means that you delegate to me how you want me to vote for you on your behalf. And that's why I knock on 1,000 doors every single year, whether I'm up for election or not, for that purpose, to find out what's going on in people's time. And one of my former students from Marymount is here. I talked a lot about this because I taught a course on politics and federalism. And I talked about what it's like to be a delegate and what the whole purpose is of being a delegate. And it's a vote on your behalf. My number one priority has always been hearing from and delivering for Arlingtonians. And in this time of threat and fear, we need to find someone who's effective and knows how to get things done. Since 2010, I've passed and had signed into law 115 bills in Richmond, more than any other House Democrat in that time. And in many of those years, we were in the minority. And so I worked across the aisle to create the progress that my constituents wanted to see. If you've seen my campaign material or the t-shirts, you've seen the slogan, keep fighting, keep hope. This is more than a motto. This is the change of all of you are like me, outraged by what's happening across the river. This is not the time to sit on the sidelines. If we stand up to bullies, we stand for the progress that we've always pursued and lived up to Hubert Humphrey's moral test of government to protect our vulnerable populations, then our hope for a better Commonwealth and a better Arlington will prevail. I ask you for your continued support in this election so that we can win this fight together. I ask you to send me back to Richmond, continue to be your delegate. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the House of Delegates debate portion of our evening. Once again, on behalf of myself, Arlington Young Democrats, Arlington Democratic Committee, thank you to each of our candidates for setting up, run, and for joining us this evening. To our audience, thank you for being here. We will now take a brief break and begin with the word.
You don't know how exciting.
I'll wait for the live stream to start. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our AYD, All Dems June Democratic Primary Forum. We've reached the second part where we will be listening to a lively forum between our two candidates for the Democratic nomination for Arlington County Board. My name is Meg Flores. I'll be moderating this event. I'm not going to lie to you, I stole the script from my predecessor. Skip ahead because you've already been welcomed. Welcome back. I do want to go over gate guidelines once again, just to make sure that everyone has a quick refresh. Our goal is to get to as many questions as possible and to hear from our candidates on the issues. So your cooperation, like last time, is going to help us here. First, on timekeeping, a digital countdown clock will be visible to all candidates via an iPad. Is that visually visible to you guys?
I don't know, but there is somebody who says 2 minutes.
All right. You've got that. You've got 2 clocks right there, clock there, and a clock there. And I'm annoying, so I'll let you know if we get close or over time. I should have said, please stay within your allotted time and be respectful. I'm gonna skip ahead. When we begin, each candidate will have 2 minutes for both their opening and closing remarks. The order of these statements will follow the official ballot order as published by the Arlington County Electoral Board's sample ballot, which is Mr. James DeVita first and Mr. Takis Karantonis second. Candidate responses will rotate with each question and will follow the same order as the ballot to begin and switch with every question following. That rotation will be clearly listed with each question that I give throughout the forum. For the final question of the evening, candidates running for the Arlington County Board will receive the final question 6 minutes before closing statement begins. That should really say 4 minutes because there's 2 of you. As for me, the moderator, I may rephrase questions slightly for clarity or flow, and may ask limited follow-up questions, with each candidate receiving up to 30 seconds to respond. Additionally, I may adjust the question order to maintain balance and overall flow of the forum. We have note cards like last time that Austin, our AYD Vice President, will be passing out. Please write them down and Austin will send them back up to me. I do have a few starter questions from our submitted responses. To our candidates, thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. We look forward to a respectful and engaging discussion based on substance and policy. Following the ballot order, we will begin opening statements with Mr. James DeVita. You have 2 minutes.
I'd like to begin my remarks tonight by talking about my campaign signs. As many of you may know, my campaign signs are different. I use my campaign signs to communicate with voters, and most voters love them. In fact, some voters I think are inspired. I was driving through my neighborhood the other day and I saw this sign that says Annette Shirlington. And I said to myself, I know it's been a busy campaign, but I don't remember putting this one. And when I looked at the sign, it made me puzzled because I thought we already had Shirlington. It may not be as big as Greenland, but it's got some great restaurants and it's got the signature theater. So I decided to go online and I looked up the Annette Shirlington. When I did, I saw a picture of my face up to one of my signs with Danny DeVito's face on it on a lamp pole. And I said to myself, this can't be right. Danny DeVito is a famous movie star. He's worth millions of dollars. He's kind of grumpy, and I've got to be at least a foot taller than he is. So I decided to retain a professional artist to try to illustrate the differences so people will not be confused. And what I have here is an art. As you can see, even though this is not drawn to scale, and actual sizes may vary, look at the height difference. And then you have the rest of these differences. It's kind of grumpy. I'm not grumpy most of the time. He's rich. I have 2 kids in college. He's famous. Not so much. So I was going to call up Arlington. I'm going to call up the author of the sign here, Arlington AF, and say, I think you've got some problems with the messaging. But then I noticed we couldn't spell what was showing, and I decided to bag that idea and how can you argue on something like that. But then I said to myself, maybe Arlington AF is right. Why not? So they've got great restaurants and a signature theater. Why don't we throw Falls Church in while we're at it? They have some great restaurants, and they also have a comic book store. May not be as big as Greenland.
Thank you very much.
Can I finish my sentence?
Sure.
If the Republicans can take Greenland, why can't we annex Shirlington? One question. Who's with me? Who wants to annex Shirlington?
I
Let's see a
believe
show
your
of hands.
sentence is done, Mr. DeVita. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Karantonis, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. It's not Shirley, but it's Shrillington. It is not the product of dyslexic art. It's a product of literal art, actually. And I'm grateful for all flower throwers out there. They know who they are. And we really owe to them a good part of the new political language, the new political culture here. First of all, let me thank you for having me here. If I go down the seconds of my opening statement, it is really refreshing to have an audience where the average age is around 30. Because in this campaign, like in many other campaigns, the average age with such audiences here is not around 30, but double that in front of. So that's a problem. Because the majority of our Lincolnians are like you. They live in corridors, they are young, we are a young place, and you need a government that responds and understands that. This is why I'm right now focused on fiscal resiliency, on the ability to continue to govern. 95% of what you are expecting and what you are experiencing governance when you leave your home every day is delivered by public government, by that. It's extremely important. Number one, resource Harrington. Retaining talent here is for me so critical and important. Trust me. This is where we are talking about all these conditions that make this a great community to live, a great community to defend in front of Trump and in front of those audience. Question.
You're taking my job away from me.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's okay. You can call me correct. No,
Forget
it's-
Wait.
So now.
Again, 2 minutes to answer. In 20 years, what do you think the population of Huntington should be?
Right. Because not because it's not a bad or a good or bad thing, it's because others are still good, but it's not for in about 60,000 people, probably even north of that, but not significantly north. We get about completely unacceptable that the 2-bedroom is already over $3,000 a month. This is just not possible. Most of you pay more than half of your income for that. If you are well-earning Americans, you're among the highest earning in the country, and yet you cannot make it here. And what you do next, you stay a couple of years here, and the next thing that you do is you leave Arlington, you leave Northern Virginia, you leave Virginia, actually, and that. This is a huge problem, and at the base of this problem is providing sufficient housing. We as a Democrats, and we are Democrats, all of us, we as a Democrats have failed to resolve the housing problem in the way that we should have done that. This is why in the 2020 Democratic platform, housing, attainable and accessible housing that responds to different ages, different walks of life, different income levels, was named for the very first time as a number of people here. This is why Spanberg is talking about that. This is why even Joe Biden back then was talking about that. This is why Kamala Harris was talking about that. Tim Kaine is talking about that. And we're talking about that every single day. We have to take tough decisions to reverse a slog of over 20 years where we lost in Arlington over 80% of our market rate affordable house. This cannot continue like that. I stand for reform.
Mr. DeVita, same question. In 20 years, what do you think the population of Arlington should be?
I wouldn't mind if it was exactly the same as it is today. I think that we have a fundamental difference, but Mr. Karantonis and I think that Mr. Karantonis believes in overdevelopment, that he sides with real estate developers. I stand for less development and for preserving the quality of life that makes Arlington a great place to live. We don't have to keep jamming more and more people into Arlington. The prime example of what I'm talking about is the Mississippi Middle. When this zoning change was first announced, the county board claimed that if they allowed real estate developers to put 6-unit condo buildings in single-family housing neighborhoods, that real estate prices would somehow magically come down. This is simply not proven to be true. The prices for all of these units are over $1 million. So the missing middle is simply not going to create affordable housing. And the other problem is that The people who actually live in the neighborhood simply don't want the missing middle. I talk to them every day. I'm out there knocking on doors every day. The people who live in the neighborhoods don't want it because it's going to increase traffic, make parking impossible, overwhelm our sewer and stormwater drainage systems, take out too many trees, and overcrowd our schools. There is no reason why we have to keep jamming people into Arlington. This practice of not listening to the people who actually live in Arlington's neighborhood. It's been repeated over and over again by the county board. Other examples include the River House development in Crystal City, which will block the view of the people living in Arlington Bridge, the Melwood House development, and the Clarendon Presbyterian Church development, which will make parking impossible in those neighborhoods, and the Hotel Pentagon project, which will lead to less affordable housing and gentrification in Green Valley. These are all examples of situations in which the county board is not listening to the people who actually live in the neighborhoods, siding with real estate developers, and basically ensuring that Arlington is overdeveloped.
Thank you very much. Second question, we'll start with you, Mr. DeVita. The arts are an important part of Arlington. How have you supported them? And how will you support them as a county board member?
Well, I can tell you two things. Number one, I regularly go to the Signature Theater. I think it's one of the most wonderful theaters we have in this country. I also would be more than happy to sponsor legislation designed to improve the arts or promote the arts. I think arts are the real basic part of our civilization. It helps advance society. I would do whatever I could to advance the arts.
Thank you very much. Will you yield the rest of your time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next up, I'll repeat the question first. The arts are an important part of Arlington. How have you supported them, and how will you support them as a county board member?
Thank you. We cannot live in a civilized society without having supporting arts of all sorts of. And arts is not only an organic thing that just happens to more educated people. We are one of the most educated communities in the United States, so you would expect that we will have an arts scene, which is true. But government plays a very big role. Whether we have theaters, which we don't, we have the one example of the Signature Theater. But we have seen time and again, just in the last 2 years, we've seen, for example, Cinetic being evicted from Crystal City, and we are having constant problems in supporting our performance city performance arts. If you compare us to the region, we are lagging behind. As a board member, I have literally insisted on investment in the arts. You have seen grants going the way of our arts organization. Last year, when we could, we almost doubled the appropriations for that. You have seen here the Modern Art Museum in Arlington. But we need to do a lot more, and we need also to engage our most wealthy businesses, and we have to create an environment where they can invest in public art. I was for a long time a member of the Public Art Committee here in Arlington, and I can tell you firsthand how difficult it is to convince those with the most money to invest a little, a tiny bit in the arts. So the government, the board's role is to be an active, open, direct, and visible advocates for the arts. I think that we have been very complacent over many, many years. We need to catch up.
Thank you very much. All right. Third question, we'll start with you, Mr. Garantolais. Given the recent news on the 2800 Columbia Pike block fallout, how, as a county board member, how can a county board member account for tariffs in construction costs so future projects do not fail?
3,800 or 2,600?
2800.
Is that the CBS block for those who asked? Yes, I hear yes. So it is 2,600, sorry, how did you know? So, and you know why? Because I worked there almost 10 years of my life. So, this is not just because I'm important. This didn't fail. It failed for a very banal reason. They had a very powerful investor in Nacor business that in the moment of economic difficulty, they decided to get out and the whole development project was not prepared to absorb that. We had a plan for that. The Columbia Pike Form-Based Road has provided ways for a new project to come in to inherit the best parts of the previous project, and we have a new application. So this is going to happen. This is going to be redeveloped. It won't have the anchor visit, which was Amazon Fresh. That's the point of this, but it will have a different anchor visit. We will complete the square that we expect as public benefit from this project. Now, what does this take? It takes a lot of advocacy from both sides. First of all, the Columbia Pike Partnership. They work there behind to get new investors in, to sell the pike, to make the pike more attractive to them. And it takes also the county government, myself, to work with them, so to ensure that these investors know what they have in front of us, that they have predictable timelines for development, that they know how the other public works will their construction time, etc. So we made it happen, and I'm very happy specifically for 2 or 3 small businesses that haven't retired there but are still active, that we could.
Thank you very much.
Location.
All right, same question, Mr. DeVita. Given the recent news on the 2800 Columbia Pike block fallout, how can a county board member account for tariffs in construction costs so future projects do not fail?
I think that what I would be willing to consider is have the county board try to provide some temporary assistance to businesses like that. Same thing with our federal workers who, as you all know, have been fired en masse. I think that if we can provide some temporary assistance to them, I think that would be something that the county board should consider. I think that we particularly need to try to help out businesses on Columbia Pike. I don't know if you tried to drive down Columbia Pike these days, but it's a complete disaster. Businesses are leaving the pike left and right. And I think that's one of the big problems that we've had with the current county board. We have a commercial vacancy rate of 25%. That means that 1 out of every 4 businesses in Arlington is vacant. I would do whatever I can to attract new business. We certainly have to do what we can to pick up Columbia Pike. It's a mess.
And can I just say something, rebuttal?
Yes.
Okay. At Columbia Pike, we have very resilient immigrant-based businesses. For everything that's built before 2006, the vacancy rate is 4%. For everything that's built after that, that's the problem. The vacancy rate is almost 30%, but they have never been occupied. So it's not that we are, shooting businesses away. It's that we cannot attract enough because Columbia Pike has been left behind with underinvestment over very.
Thank you very much.
Can I have 1 second?
You may have 30 seconds rebuttal.
Yeah, I think I see that's part of the problem. There used to be a very nice little Middle Eastern restaurant on Pike. It was called the Tillis. It's gone. The Lost Dog Cafe is giving notice that they're going to be gone. The construction of the pike was just not managed properly because it's destroying the little businesses there. They're barely hanging on. We've got to do what we can to promote business because for one very simple reason, and that is that businesses contribute to the tax base. And if you have businesses contributing to the tax base, you have more money to do things for people in our lives.
Thank you very much.
Until as retired, this is not.
All right, I'm going to move us on to the next question. This will turn into a back and forth otherwise. The next question is for Mr. DeVita, but we will allow Thomas to go second so that we can have your response in the same 2-minute time frame. The question is as follows. How can you claim to care about Arlington and its issues when you seem to care more about spending money on campaigns and signs and not actual community building?
I think that's kind of a funny thing to say. anybody can put their name on a sign. Vote for me, then you have your name. I think it's important to let people know what you stand for. And in this day and age, it's not easy to communicate with voters. I try to do a lot of personal stuff. I go to door 4 hours a night. I'm out there all day on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, knocking on voter doors. But when I decided to run, I thought to myself, what better way to actually communicate my position on the issues than to put them on campaign signs? And I will tell you that people uniformly tell me every time I would call at somebody's door, they say, I've seen your signs, I love your signs. And it's an opportunity that I think other politicians miss. And to say that I don't care because I've spent money on it, I think that's ridiculous. I think it shows I really care because I actually want to communicate to people. It boggles my mind that somebody could think it's a negative. What better way to let people know what you stand for, what you're running for? Frankly, I think the question is insulting.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Karen Thomas?
Campaign signs communicates. I agree with everybody who says that the yard signs is a very suburban way to communicate, but you have many other ways to do this. That is the same word. For me, the most important thing in a campaign is who you meet, where you meet them, how you meet them. And for me, it continues to be, it's a joy to campaign. I want to tell you that because you're young Democrats, you are here for one, and you have one thing in common. You are politically engaged. You are meeting the challenge of this moment in this country. And this, the challenge of this moment in this country is how do we talk to voters, everybody. It's always amazing to get to see the communities, the neighborhoods. I do it a lot. I reinstated this year in person. Town Polish, open door Mondays every month, every entire country. I one just this Monday. So for me, this is enormously stimulating and there's a lot of feedback that comes from that. There is something that is very important. I don't believe in campaigning as a one-way street in local politics. I always want to tell you that you meet your constituencies in the town supermarket. You meet them always. There is no other type of politics. Well, politics is local. Remember that? There is no other type of politics where one has so much exposure to the immediate feedback loop of what we do. Every decision that we take will have constituencies that will react to that, that will give feedback to that will come and testify, etc. For me, this is extremely important. This is why I am in local politics. I was a national before. I come from a community. I led a community organization that gathered the voices.
Thank you very much. All right, our next question will start with Mr. Karen Thomas. How will you support transit and pedestrian and bicyclist safety?
By putting pedestrians first. That's important. Because when we put pedestrians first, we begin to care very seriously about the needs of everybody else. We begin to think, how do you slow down cars? How do you design streets in a way that they don't induce fast driving? How do you make bicycles? How you care about cyclists? How you create networks that work for everybody, that connect actually, not just they're not just testimonial there. So we have evolved a lot in Arlington about transit safety. I have seen in the last 3 years, so 4 years of my service, immediately after the pandemic, when people got out and they began to walk again, I've seen an exponential growth of care about street safety. I am an old established advocate of pedestrian design, of roads that work for people first and not first for cars. I'm for disentangling roads. I want to have bicycle, not only lanes, protected lanes, but also networks that induce that, favor one model and let's favor another model in a good balance. This is why we have the master transportation plan update right now, and I beg you to engage with that, bring new thinking to us. Transit is my middle name. I not only I like Walmart, I like the bus every day. 77, you will find me there. We have a lot of conversations there. I prefer to find as well. So this is, Arlington has made enormous progress with that, but we are way behind. I live on a bus corridor, the highest ridership in the Commonwealth of Virginia, one of the highest in the East Coast. We're very proud of that, and we need to defend that because funding is important. And
Thank you very much.
I fight for that.
You fight for that, you fight me for your time. All right, Mr. DeVita, the question goes to you. How will you support transit and bicyclists and pedestrian safety?
I'm a big believer in public transit. I think part of what made the Boston corridor go was the fact that there was a subway line. And I think long term, I'd advocate for the same thing under Columbia Pike. There's no reason why we can't have a subway line there, and I think it would certainly spur development. I also strongly believe in public transit in general. I know some bus lines have been cut. I'll restore those. I'm a big believer in bike lanes. And that's part of one of my campaign positions. I think part of the problem with bike lanes right now is that the streets are not as well marked as they should. But I think that it's a great thing to do. It's good exercise for people, and it gets people out of their cars. I also believe that we need more electric vehicle charging stations. I think electric vehicles are the future. Those are things that I would promote. And I think if we can mark the bike lanes more clearly, I think that certainly would increase safety.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. DeVita, we'll start with you for the next question. Again, this question is directed towards you. So Mr. Garantonis, you will have time to respond for your 2 minutes. This is a long one, so buckle up.
Sorry.
It's fine. Your housing policy platform proposes 3 solutions: converting more vacant offices into residential units, making developers set aside low-income units with price caps, and increasing subsidies for low-income housing. At the same time, your economic development platform proposes cutting commercial taxes to encourage businesses to set up offices in Arlington and entice remote workers to return to the office. Now the question: how do you plan to reconcile your 2 platforms without, 1, making people compete with businesses over vacant office space, 2, ensuring developers do not raise the price of market rate units to offset low income units, and 3, increasing property taxes or cutting public services to increase housing subsidies while cutting commercial taxes?
Believe it or not, I can answer that one. No, I think that, first of all, I think people always think I'm negative, that I don't believe in affordable housing. I have 2 daughters of my own. They're 20 and 22 years old. I would like them to live in Arlington too. And I think the problem with the missing middle is just not a real solution. I just don't think it's actually going to create affordable housing. And so one of my ideas is to convert vacant office space. And there's a plan out there, it's called co-living. And the idea is that most of the office spaces will have a central bathroom, a central kitchen, and then you ring units around. And it's kind of like a dormitory situation, which obviously would not appeal to middle-aged people, but to young people just starting out, they may actually find that attractive, and they may actually be able to afford something like that. So that's one solution. I think the other problem is that if you look at the missing middle, the real problem with it is at least pricing up to the market. And no offense, but I don't think real estate developers care about affordable. And so I think that if you really want to bring prices down, you've got to have the government basically dictating prices. And one way that we can do that is to try to convince developers to set aside units for lower middle income people. There's an example, the Hotel Pentagon project. The government basically was talking to them about setting aside units for lower middle income people. That's another way we can do it. And then, for people who are on the lowest of the economic rungs, I think the government can actually provide low income housing. So the long and the short of it is, I really believe in affordable housing. I just want an actual solution that will actually work. As to how to do all that, I think we've simply got to talk to developers to see if we can get them to do that. And then, in terms of, my plan to reduce taxes briefly, the idea is to see if we can get an introduction rate or a lower rate to get businesses willing to commit to Arlington long term. And if we do that, we bring them in, and then eventually we would be able to get them paying full taxes again. With that revenue, we can fund all kinds of things. And so the long and the short of it is that the one thing I really.
Thank you very much. Mr. Garantonis, would you like me to repeat the question?
No. That's an important question because this is a balance and is a real policy problem, right? There is in the Commonwealth of Virginia and other Virginia law, we have the delegates here. I hope you discuss that, whether you can have differentiated taxation, etc. Because I believe that this is a problem. Now the problem is that Arlington has a affordable housing ordinance, and only 5% can be required to be set aside, either in single or paid for affordable housing development. Everything else has to be bought with additional density, and that this is the value that the local government has. I signed off to more money for affordable housing, for affordable units in Arlington than any of my predecessors. In 4 years, I signed off for of more money or subsidies for affordable housing than JP said in 18 years of service. This is great. I'm very proud about the Bancroft Apartments. I'm very proud about Crystal Houses. I'm very proud about Arlington having 10% of its rental stock affordable at average 6% in value less. But it's not sustainable, folks. Housing, and definitely not something that any taxpayers can really pay. We cannot pay our way out of the affordability crisis. What we can do is to change the structure of our housing market slowly and fastly. In our corridors here, where we have the ability to be very efficient, we have to exhaust the land use that we have. It's my first priority, was my first priority, and this is why you will see that we are really very accommodating for development that comes and creates quality housing. There is no discounts on quality, because young households are, for me, equally important households than any other households. So,
Thank you very much.
that's great.
Next question, we'll start with you. We have seen mixed community feedback from recent developments like Hotel Pentagon and Melwood regarding what communities feel like they have to sacrifice in order to have a new development in their neighborhood. How can the county provide more robust community benefits for residents that live adjacent to new developments to feel like these developments are worthwhile investments for them as well?
We are out of easy in Arlington. Low-hanging fruit is not anymore available. That means that real needs, like for example, with Diesel Millwood, this is affordable housing with significant contribution for people with disabilities. This is so immensely difficult to produce any place. This is something that the nonprofit can do. The public benefit that this project has delivered is absolutely unattainable in any other possible way, unless, of course, you want to find tens of millions of dollars to do it work, to make it work in a different way. We have a bespoke system of community benefits. I think that Arlington is a developed, mature community that needs that kind of interaction. You talked about arts, for example, and affordable housing, and transit, and all these and public space. These are the kind of community benefits that we negotiate every day. I am a big believer in form-based codes, for example. I can talk with you about why this is a better, more predictable system. I would like the entire country to be on form-based code. I'm a practitioner of that. We did it on Columbia Pike, and it works very, very well, actually. So this will save us a lot of bespoke situations like Melwood and so many others.
Thank you very much. All right,
Can you read the question?
I absolutely can. We have seen mixed community feedback from recent developments like Hotel Pentagon in Melwood regarding what communities feel like they have to sacrifice in order to have new development in their neighborhood. How can the county provide more robust community benefits for residents that live adjacent to new developments so that those residents can feel like these developments are worthwhile investments for them as well?
I think that what you've got to do is you've got to actually listen to the people who live in the neighborhoods that are being affected. I mean, take the missing middle, for example. I'll knock on somebody's door and I'll say, how do you feel about the missing middle? And the first thing I'll point out to them is that in these single family neighborhoods, parking's kind of already full up. I say you put 6 units in, that's 12 more cars, where are you gonna put them? And the light bulb goes on, people get it. You know, that there simply isn't room for what they're trying to do. The other problem is the sewer and stormwater systems. If you don't believe me, these are quotes from Judge Shell's opinion, the judge that struck it down. I cannot be in statement strong enough words that the missing middle is going to be devastating to the already stressed stormwater conveyance system. There is no evidence that the board considered the 6plex with at least 6 toilets, additional wash showers, sinks, and dishwashers to increase the flow in the county system so that homeowners sharing the sewer line with the 6plex will suffer sewage backup into their homes. The long and the short of it is there's no reason to keep jamming people into Arlington. I think the problem is that everybody emotionally feels that they want more affordable housing. I want more affordable housing, but you've got to come up with a solution that's practical and actually works. And you see the same thing in other parts of Arlington. You know, for example, you mentioned Melwood and it's the Clarion Presbyterian Church. I went over to the Clarion Presbyterian Church on Saturday, and I looked at the parking situation all around the church. There was not a single space left. And you're going to put a tower on top of that with all that additional parking. How is that going to work? You know, you've got the River House development that's going to block the view of the people who live on Arlington Bridge. That view is important to those people. And then you've got the Hotel Pentagon project, you know, which is, you know, kind of the ultimate example, I think, of the county board not listening to people. You've got the pastor there at the Lomax Church saying, you know, this is not what we wanted,
Thank you
but
very
yet
much.
they did it anyway.
All right, we are at our last question. I'm going to squeeze in a quick favorite of mine from last year. Mr. DeVito, we will start with you. You, as you've mentioned in your opening statement, have many signs out there. Of all your campaign signs, what is the key issue you want voters to remember that if they vote for you, you promise to bring?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that I bear Mr. Carantonis no ill will. He and I just have a difference in opinion. We just have a difference in policy. And the real crux of the whole thing is, do you want, you know, overdevelopment, which, you know, in my opinion, will overcrowd, you know, the places and reduce the quality of life. I believe in quality of life. I think that there's, you know, certainly it's nice to have development, but, you know, when you really get right down to it, people want to live in Arlington because we have a nice quality of life. We have nice suburban neighborhoods. There's nothing wrong with Arlington the way it is. Once again, which is not to say that I would fight all developments, but just, you know, why not put density where density already is? Put it in the Boston Quarter, put it in Langston Boulevard. I think there's certainly a place for people who want to live in a city type of environment. You know, and I think the Boston Quarter was brilliant. Shops over restaurants and the people above, that's brilliant. But you don't need to put that in a single family neighborhood. And I guess bottom line, when people are going to vote, and I think that you will see this eventually, people don't want it. People in the neighborhoods don't want it. And why should they have it forced on them? I don't understand that. Bottom line, I think you have a choice to make. I think it's pretty clear. I think the election's almost going to be a referendum on the missing middle. I'd like to see what the voters have to say.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carantonis, the question is, of all the issues that you stand for, what is the one key issue you want voters to remember that if they vote for you, that you will bring?
The issue right now, folks, is how do we survive the Trump years? How Arlington is already changing, and this is not anymore the community that we used to. Our fiscal environment is getting narrowed by the day. Programs are cut, people are laid off. Our unemployment rate is rising. Arlington is a place of opportunity. When people are not coming here because Arlington is particularly pretty, it's pretty to me. They come here because they have jobs. They come here because there is investment. The federal government is huge. 1 out of 5 Arlingtonians is related to the public sector. A lot of others are depending on us contractors, etc. And most importantly, the 1/3 of Arlingtonians are not doing economically well and on this economy here. I'm extremely what I'm asking you when I'm asking you for your vote is to vote for somebody who has a proven record of being able to balance and steadily manage crisis. I was elected during the pandemic. I know what I'm talking about. We're doing it every day. There is everything else that we have been discussing today is rearranging seats on the Titanic. If we don't, we are not going to be able to fortify and defend our community, our budgets, our fiscal ability, our school system as we go. We are one of the highest performance and maintenance communities in the United States. We're in a new city, and this is what we are called now to step up and defend. Not only making it resilient, as in having all the tools in the box to make sure that we resolve housing, that we resolve employment, that we care about the weakest of the army.
Thank you very much. All right, we will do our closing statements, 2 minutes, and we will do them in the same order as we did the opening statement. So Mr. DeVita, you will go first.
What I'd like to do in my closing is talk about a few other issues, obviously, other than this bill. I think one of the big problems Arlington has right now is the lack of business. As I mentioned at the outset, we have a 25% commercial vacancy rate in Arlington. I think we need to do whatever we can to bring more business to Arlington. And the reason is, once again, it makes everything else go. If we can bring in business, we can increase tax revenue. If we can increase tax revenue, we have more money for all kinds of things, helping disadvantaged people, whatever we want to do. But we can't do it without more business in Arlington. And once again, with all due respect to Mr. Karantonis, like I said, the Columbia Pikes, the best businesses are leaving left and right. It's a very stark statistic. 1 out of every 4 businesses in Arlington is vacant, and the community simply can't progress without economic development. One other issue that I didn't mention was public safety. We have a 20% vacancy rate in the police department. I've talked to police officers. They say they don't even have enough people to fund, to fully staff the patrols. And we need to do something about that. We need to make Arlington safer. Lastly, I have a great deal of sympathy for all our federal workers. I think that Arlington should either hire them back if we can, provide them with temporary unemployment benefits if we can, provide them with job training, job counseling, job fairs. Anything that we can do to help protect our federal workers, because these people are the backbone of our local economy. Without federal employment, Arlington just doesn't go. We need to protect these people, and that's something that I would work to do as well. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Karantonis.
So we already started saying something about what is for me most important, what keeps me awake at night, which is defense of our community. But this is behind this internal backdrop for Arlington that is for me a thriving city, a good community, a community that says yes, that is open to new policies, that is open to the hard work, that is confronting the tough questions of the times, whether it is climate, whether it's housing, whether it's employment. We are one of the, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, we're of the highest performing communities around. We can make it. We have the talent, and we have the workforce and the skilled workforce that can support the a community that is absolutely next level, a community that's connected, that has solidarity, that understands how to balance a community that has enormous differences in wealth, in perspectives, in politics even. I am a very big believer in a positive vision for Arlington. The fact that we are here today gives me a lot of hope. I know that the majority of Arlingtonians right now are looking at us as Democrats for solutions for how we are going to bridge that. In Arlington, we attract businesses still. We have still a very low unemployment rate. We are one of the best places to invest. And we will continue to that by social safety net. These fundamental deliverables for Arlingtonians who may fall off the cliff right now are my very first priority. When you go to vote, you are going to vote to sustain a community that has the ability to act that we have done so many years. For me, I told when I ran 2021 for office, I told then YD chair Montoya, I told I want
Thank you very much.
and this is what I'm doing.
All right, thank you everyone for participating. For the news, we're going to take the money. It's time to and remind you all that we have early voting has already started. And the primary is June 17th. And if you had a question that I didn't get to, please make sure to email them. They are ours to answer for the next month.
We know where to find us, right?
And just a quick reminder of our events on Tuesday, May 27th at 6:30 p.m. We'll be at El Rey for our monthly happy hour. June 1st, we do seats reserved for the drag lunch at the social. It is open to paid members, so if you're not a paid member and you want to come to the drag brunch, please either see me or our recruitment director Jesse over there. In addition to the drag bride brunch, you can also get tickets to our membership barbecue as well. And then other than that, for the actual high grade, we will have a group meeting formed. So be on the lookout for our socials. Other than that, thank you all for coming out. And a quick reminder for those who aren't, make sure you visit the front desk, which is through the 7 set of doors in the lobby. So they can scan your app and that will give you the validation to get out. If you don't get that scan, you'll unfortunately have to
So what is the Shrillington happy hour?
Well, we covered June, next for planning session next week, so we'll see if we can squeeze it in. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.